Hi, this is Johnny, your friendly local realtor. I hope you and your loved ones are safe and sound in the midst of this ongoing pandemic. Okay, so we're right now in the middle of third quarter, but where exactly are we in terms of economic recovery? Are we even making any headway? And how about the housing market? Are homes still being bought and sold right now? I'll be answering these questions today, so please stay with me. So economic recovery, where exactly are we? First, let's get a glimpse of what's happening in the market by looking at this consumer spending chart. Comparing to where we were in January 1st, you can see that things are very different depending on the industry. Grocery businesses over the last several months have definitely grown with people eating at home due to quarantine. But with other businesses, you can see that their numbers have fallen drastically. They had a deep fall in the end of March and early April, but after hitting the bottom, they started coming back. And things are a little different depending on the type of business. Apparel and general businesses are coming back, but not so much with transportation and travel related businesses. And it seems like this is going to be the trend going forward, that some businesses recovering quicker than others. But all in all, this chart is sufficient to tell us that all businesses are recovering and heading upward. Now let's talk a little bit about GDP. Back in April, as we were starting second quarter, some of the major economists made a forecast that our economy will constrict, and their average was around negative 31%. Now, what actually happened is the economy constricted in the initial advanced estimate by 32.9%. So it was very close to what they had forecasted for the second quarter. Now, if that's what they had said then, I would like to take a look at what they're saying right now. Those same analysts again made a forecast, and we have a few more analysts for the third quarter. And it's quite encouraging in regards to the economic recovery. So the left green are the original forecasters, and the right blue are the additional 3 forecasters. And all of them are forecasting anywhere from 15 to 25% recovery over this quarter. In addition, here's an interesting perspective from Morgan Stanley. The chief investment officer, Lisa Shallot, said this: "Indeed, the worst ever GDP reading could be followed by the best ever growth in the third quarter." So we are seeing economic recovery happening, and certainly those forecasters that were very much on average correct in the second quarter, looking at what they're saying going into the third quarter. So if that's what's happening in the overall economy, what's happening in the housing market? Here are several clips from economists across the spectrum, and what they're saying is quite interesting. Realtor.com says, an astonishing rebound. Shockingly strong, says Housing Wire. Atom Data Solutions says, pulled something of a high wire act in the second quarter. And Zillow says, stared the pandemic right in the eye and hasn't blinked. Has been nothing short of remarkable by Myers Research. All these are the descriptors of housing market recovery. Now, this is rather odd because this is not how economists normally speak. They speak very factually, very much based on the data. And this is really summing up that where housing market is right now is blowing away what experts have thought, and really underscoring the strength of housing right now. And here's how one of the experts, Realtor.com, sums this up. Despite the crippling and ongoing COVID pandemic, millions out of work, a recession, a national reckoning over systemic racism, and a highly contentious presidential election just around the corner, the residential real estate market is staging an astonishing rebound. So we're seeing housing play a critical role in economic recovery. But if we really want to look at what's happening in detail, we have to look at behavior. I've mentioned showing time before and have been following it to set as the indicator to see how many people are viewing homes. And with this chart, you can see the number of weeks since about the middle of May that we've seen weekly showings to be normalized back to January. We saw the drop in late March and April, but people that couldn't get out in the spring or had plans to buy a home in the spring have all started to rush out, filling that pent-up demand. And as we move towards the fall, we might see that normalize a little, but the showing and activities out in the current housing market is very, very strong. Okay, so let's look at this NAR Housing Market Recovery Index. This takes 4 things: demand, supply, price, and time on the market, and combines them together to create this index. And you can see the dip down in early March, but from early May, numbers are starting to come back up. And we're right now at a point that is above the February 1st baseline. We're certainly not at a point where we would have been had we not had this pandemic, but this graph is definitely showing that we're recovering quite strong. Now there's a large range of projections on what's happening with housing prices. This is a collection of 9 experts and what they expect on housing prices moving forward. They're forecasting anywhere from 4.4% appreciation to about 1% appreciation. However, you can see on the right with the orange bars where CoreLogic forecasts 1% appreciation. Now, FYI, this has been recently reduced by CoreLogic because they had originally forecasted 6.6% appreciation. And I suspect there could be more revision on this matter to be followed by CoreLogic in the near future, because supply and demand always dictate pricing, and we see this being very strong in the housing market today. So in conclusion, our economy is definitely making headway on its path to recovery despite what seems to be a stalemate. This is inevitable because unlike 2008, where housing market was the cause of the recession, experts are now saying that this time it's the housing market that's going to get us out of current recession. And as we have seen today, housing market is very strong. So let's stay in there and do what we can to overcome this pandemic, because we're getting closer to the light at the end of the tunnel. Let's keep our hopes up and see you next time. Goodbye.